menopause momentum continues to grow, which is amazing. But what I have noticed in my 20 plus career in women's health is that people don't even understand what the terms mean. I'm Dr. Suzanne Gilbert-Lenz. I'm board certified in OBGYN and integrative and holistic medicine. I'm also the founder and the author of Menopause Bootcamp. Why did I found Menopause Bootcamp? To educate people, because we can't go through things in our lives if we don't even know what we're talking about. So let's just start with the language and let's start with the definitions. Perimenopause versus menopause. What are the differences? Okay, so here's the thing with menopause. The term right now is being used to encompass all of it, sort of the whole transition. But menopause itself is one day of your life. It's the day that you get to 12 months without a menstrual bleed consecutively between the ages of 45 and 55. Average age in this country is about 51. Perimenopause is that time leading up to menopause. Pretty fuzzy. What does that actually mean? On average, people will experience fairly predictable unpredictability, and we'll get into that, for at least 7 to 10 years leading up to that, what we call final menstrual period. That's what perimenopause is. Peri is the Latin term, which means surrounding. So it's the time leading up to that menopause moment. And I think a lot of us are focusing on perimenopause without understanding what perimenopause is. Okay, so now you've got the most important tool in the toolkit. You've got the language. We have to be able to speak to each other and understand what we mean. Menopause and postmenopause are the rest of your life. Menopause is that day. Perimenopause is the decade leading up to it. The rest of your life, 20, 30 or more years postmenopausal. So what's going on in perimenopause? You know, you're going through your life, you get your period, you finally figure out what that means to you. You finally start understanding how you feel at different times in the cycle, or you're avoiding your cycle because you're trying to not get pregnant, or because you have a medical reason, or just because you just don't like experiencing it. But you get that down. You finally get that down. And then somewhere between 35 and 45, things just seem to be different. And I'll tell you something. I hear this all the time in my office, and there's actually terminology that we use now called not feeling like myself. How many of you are in that age group and have felt not like yourself? Lots of us. I know I felt that way, and I know a lot of my patients feel that way. I think we identify so much with our menstrual cycle that we start to feel like that's actually who we are. And it has a massive influence on us, right? It's not just the bleeding and the bleeding patterns, it's the hormonal changes that occur throughout that cycle, right? Your estrogen rising, your progesterone declining, and all of the ways that your body feels. It's not just something you're making up. It's not all in your head, although it is definitely affecting your brain. But those hormones have an impact on all levels of functioning. Yes, your cognition, your moods, your energy, your muscular strength, your digestion. Now, when we get into the perimenopause period of life, that cycle, the way it presents itself to us from bleed to bleed, starts to change. Even before those changes, there are changes in the levels of our hormones and how they're impacting all of our body parts. So even before the menstrual cycle, the bleed changes, we might start to notice differences in our sexual response, vaginal dryness, mood, breast tenderness, fatigue. Maybe we never had premenstrual syndrome and now we do. Maybe we had a very short premenstrual syndrome, 2 or 3 days before our period, and it's now lasting a week or 2 weeks. Once we get into the skipping of the periods and the change in the quality of our periods, it's much more obvious. But even before that menstrual period changes, we have a lot of subtle but profound changes that we are feeling. And there's science that explains why this is happening and why we feel so different. We have irregularity in the fluctuations of the hormones. So we go from a very regular fluctuation in our hormones to irregularity, changes in those ratios of things like estrogen and progesterone. Those are impacting brain structure and everything else in our body, because we know that we have receptors for all of these hormones throughout all of our body tissues. And this is where people start to feel not like themselves. There are a lot of things that we can do as we're going through this period of time, and the subtle changes that really are impacting our quality of life and our health. But it requires that we understand a little bit of the basics. So this is what I want you to leave with this conversation, right? That A, not feeling like yourself is an actual thing. B, there is science to explain why these things are happening. And C, there are solutions, whether they are lifestyle based, really paying attention to sleep, really paying attention to stress management, really paying attention to what we eat, how we eat, and the quality of our food, really paying attention to our fitness and what kind of movement and exercise we're getting. And let me just say that I think a lot of us enter into this period of our lives going hard with our workouts if we work out. And sometimes going hard is not the best thing. Sometimes dialing it back and focusing on rest is more important. Alcohol, not really our friend, and particularly not our friend at this period of our lives. Other habits like smoking, if you're smoking, this is really the time to stop smoking. And then understanding our overall health. How is our blood sugar, our insulin? What other cardiometabolic risk do we have? And how can we manage the change in our body weight? Not just about weight, but about the kind of fat that we have. Fat that is not just maybe in your hips or your butt, but moving into your belly, and more importantly, into your internal organs. These are metabolically active tissues. Changes in your muscle mass and your musculoskeletal health. I think people need to really start to understand how metabolically active our muscle mass is. So again, if we can target the various changes in our bodies, understand the science, then we can start to evolve our habits to support our long-term health. One of the most important things that you can do is to partner with practitioners who really understand this time of life, so that you can enter into a period of defined instability. I mean, this is like puberty. It's the puberty of midlife. But if you have a partner in your health to get through that, traverse the discomfort so that you can come out the other side more healthy, more strong, and more empowered, that's your best bet. That's why I started developing Menopause Bootcamp, to educate and empower with real life solutions. That's why I wrote the book, and that's why I now train others to do this program, so that in your own community, you can be creating the community. And honestly, community is medicine, but understanding the information and how to access resources that will be actionable and have a positive impact on not just your health today, but your health span for the rest of your life.